All right, welcome everybody to the Professional vBrownBag US edition. Tonight is June 17th. We got Geoff Wilmington at vWilmo presenting vSphere management features. Before we get started, some quick show notes. You can join in on the conversation using the hashtag vBrownBag on the Twitters, or you can ask any question or join in on the conversation as well in the GoToMeeting window. Don't forget, we have other shows going around. We have APAC, EMEA, US, and the Latin show. Tonight's guest is Geoff Wilmington at vWilmo on Twitter. I'm your host, Ahmad Yunus, at Ahmad_Yunus on Twitter as well. And with that, that's all I got. Pass it on to you, Geoff. Maybe.
All right.
Done. All yours.
Okay. So can you guys all see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. Which screen can you see?
I just see, looks like, oh, you just pulled up some slides. So VCP6
Okay, cool.
Foundation.
Yep. Awesome. All right. So my name is Geoff Wilmington. I am a VMware SE system engineer for healthcare in the Illinois state. So we're going to quickly go through Objective 5 for the VCP6 Foundation Blueprint. So just a little bit of FYI to the listeners out there. My laptop lab exploded before vBrownBag, so I had to kind of had to do a little rebuilding of things, but everything is still back up and running, so we're pretty good here. And I'm not going to bury you guys with slides. I've got about 18 or so slides in the deck. Really, I just kind of want to do some demos and actually take you through the interfaces and through the processes, involved with actually using the products. So with that, I'll flip it over to the objectives. So describe the backup and recovery options, snapshot requirements, best practices, those kinds of things. So we're gonna talk about snapshots. I'm gonna walk you through the files involved, the files that come up with snapshots, when to use snapshots, when not to use snapshots, snapshot requirements and things of that nature. And then we're going to talk about VMware data protection. I'm sorry, vSphere data protection 6.0, powered by EMC. And we'll go through that product, and then we'll go through vSphere replication as well. So to fire this thing off, just kind of starting it off, the first objective was to kind of describe backup and recovery options. So with regard to like VMware or vSphere data protection, vSphere data protection, it offers backup and recovery options for both the Linux and Windows machines in your environment, and it's capable of doing file level restores. So it is while it does have some limitations, it does have enterprise level features like file level restores for Windows and Linux machines, which is something a lot of customers are looking for. And then vSphere replication, as far as backup and recovery options for that, we can recover or actually replicate a VM to a target site and actually recover that VM at that target site. And we offer even things so far as like multiple point in time recovery. So if we decide to send a VM from one site to another, and we have multiple copies that are being sent, we don't have to restore its latest copy. We can actually restore one of the point-in-time copies. It's pretty cool stuff. So with that, we'll kind of kick into snapshots, when not to use them. And let's be honest here, folks. You've heard this, numerous times. It's kind of, it's pretty, I would say this is the dead horse, if you will. But snapshots are they're not backups, guys. They're not backups. However, they are used to facilitate backups for products. So in regards to things like vSphere data protection, snapshots are used to actually quiesce and get the file systems ready on the VMs to be copied over or backed up for backup. So using snapshots, I don't want to put it out as like that's a bad thing, but when not to use snapshots, you don't want to use snapshots for long periods of time. Generally, you want to use them for a few hours or for just a couple of days. I believe these VMware best practices for snapshots, they say try to avoid using snapshots for any more than 24 to 72 hours. You kind of want to just kind of keep that in mind. And the reason why you want to keep those kinds of things in mind is that the Delta file that's created when you take a snapshot, that Delta file can grow over time, and it does grow over time. And depending upon how active that VM is, that Delta file could grow to a very large size. And when you take a snapshot, you have to be cognizant of the amount of space that's free on the data store from when you take the snapshot, because if that Delta file fills up that data store, you're going to be in a world of hurt. So those are the reasons why they say don't use them for long periods of time, because those Delta files do grow rather quickly depending upon the workload that's being run on that VM. When to use them? If you're doing a software upgrade or doing some patching and so forth with a VM, those are the times where you want to use a snapshot. If you are doing Windows patching or you're doing some kind of application maintenance, you might want to take a snapshot beforehand just to make sure that the upgrade is going to basically not bork the system when when you actually do your upgrade. So those are the times to kind of take those to do those kinds of things. And then obviously, like I said before, when to use them is when they're used for like products like Veeam or vSphere data protection, where a snapshot is taken and then that snapshot the machine sits in snapshot mode so that the actual backup software can actually take an accurate copy of the machine and what it's doing at the time. So I flip over here to kind of the snapshot demo. I'm going to kind of bring over my my lab here, because I thought it would be good to basically just kind of take a snapshot of a VM and then kind of go through the files so that we're all accustomed to what the files are and what actually is what's being saved when you actually do a snapshot. So flip over here to hosts and clusters, and kind of in my lab I have kind of two clusters going on here. Don't mind the reboot required. I just fired those bad boys up. So I have a database server here that was an old database server of mine. So what I would do is when I'm ready to take a snapshot, we come in here and we can go into manage snapshots. Now, what you're going to see here is you're going to see that it already has a snapshot, because I'm actually in the background, I'm replicating this, or I'm actually taking a backup of this machine as we speak, taking a full backup so that for the other section for the vSphere data protection. So you'll see a snapshot here. So when we look at this machine and we want to take a look at the snapshots and things that are going on with it, we go into the manage snapshot wizard, and there's a kind of a hierarchy, if you will, for snapshots. And the first snapshot that you take is pretty much referred to as the parent snapshot. So this snapshot is the one that's beneath the "You Are Here" icon, right? So this is the amusement park or the mall icon, where you're at, where the VM is currently at. And then we take the snapshot, and that takes, that's what's being used to, that's where the system is now. So all changes are being written to this file as kind of like a redo log, and then where you are now is where the VM is, and it's actually being backed up from that point. So let's take let's go to like the domain controller here, and let's get to one that actually is actually on here. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete, this one already has a snapshot on it too. take a snapshot on my VRAP server. So if we want to take a snapshot, we can go in here and we'll just go to snapshots and we're going to go take snapshot. So there's a couple of different things here. So with snapshots, you know, it preserves the following information when you take the snapshot. Preserves the virtual machine settings, power state. So if the machine is on, off, or suspended, it records that. Disk state. So it records the state of all the disks that are involved. And then optional, which is what we're doing down here, is you can actually take a snapshot of the memory state. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the difference in the files that we look at based on what when you turn that on and when you turn that off, because we're going to look at the actual files involved with the snapshot and discuss them. Oops. All right. So we took one without the memory quiesced. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to go in here to the data store that this box sits on, which it should be on my QNAP on my management line. Related app objects. Give me just a second here. Virtual machines. So yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the summary tab, and then we're going to, the manage tab. And we're going to look in here into the folder of where the VM sits. And we're going to look at these files, and you're going to see the Delta file. You're going to see the VMSN file, which is basically the memory file, and then we're going to see the database file, and you'll see the VMDKs. So as soon as this thing pops up here, we'll flip into this thing real fast. So while this thing's popping up here, so there, so for some requirements for snapshots and things you want to watch out for, make sure that you have the appropriate room in the data store that you're going to take the snapshot in. If you know that you're only going to use it for a little bit, make sure you have an appropriate amount of room. The machine cannot have any raw disks, physical disk mode RDMs, or NGEST iSCSI initiators, so you can't take snapshots of those. And if you use independent disks, you want to make sure that the VM is powered off before you take a snapshot. It's not supported to take a snapshot online of an independent disk. And you cannot use snapshots for bus sharing types of VMs. And you obviously, going back to the same thing we talked about before, you only want to use them for a limited time. So when we take a look at this here, we're seeing up here at the top, we're seeing that this VM actually has 3 VMDKs with it. And then what we're going to do is this is the descriptor file or the database file for that keeps the snapshot information in there. You don't want to get rid of that one. The MSN file. So this is the snapshot memory file. So since we did not take a quiesced, we did not take a memory snapshot of what the memory state was in, this is rather low. Generally, when you take a memory snapshot, it would be equivalent to whatever the memory size is on the VM. So this VM, I don't know how much memory it has, but when we take another snapshot of it and I show you, you'll see that this size will go up pretty high. And then these are the Delta disks. These are the redo files, if you will, that are being represented by those VMDKs. So these are the files here and here and here. You should see one per VMDK on the VM. And those files are the files that grow based on the number of changes that occur while the machine is in snapshot mode. So those are the files that you want to make sure that when you come in here, you see up here that the VMDKs are 4 gigs, 11 gigs, and about 1.5 gig or something along those lines. But down here, they're only about 17 meg. So they're pretty small. But as the machine changes and as things happen to the disk, these files will get much larger. So you want to be very careful. These files don't grow too large, and you get rid of them quickly. So go back here real fast.
Hey Jeff, we have our first question.
Yep.
Graham is asking the reservation memory or the full memory size.
So it'll be the full memory size. So I'll take it here in just a second, and I'll show you what it does. So give me just a second. Let me flip this thing over here and let me delete the snapshot, and then I will show you what happens when we take one of the machine. So we'll do now is we'll just delete this one, and then we'll I'll take another one and show you what it looks like when you take one with the memory actually on it, and you'll see the difference. So let's take a snapshot. We'll do another vBrownBag. We'll snap the memory. Snap the memory. Give it a second, and then you'll see the file will get rather large. So with this VM, let's just take a look at it here. This VM has total amount of memory, saying memory used is just 2.3 gigs, but actually look at it here under Edit Settings. I give it a second. It's still snapping itself. So as you can see, when you take a snap of the memory, it takes a little bit longer for it to actually take the snapshot. So it's going to take just a little bit longer here. So I'm just going to flip back to the slides real quick, and we'll keep going, and then I'll flip back to that thing when it finishes up. So that's kind of basically the stuff that you would need to know around snapshots and keeping them under control, if you would.
So another question around snapshots. With the snapshot file consumption, would it differ if the parent disk is thin or thick?
So the snapshot file is just going to be. It shouldn't matter. So like this VM here, is actually should actually be thin provision, but it shouldn't matter. So it doesn't. So any changes that occur to the VMDK are going to get written to the redo log. So it doesn't matter whether it's thin or thick. It should immediately put those changes into the redo log for that regardless. So there shouldn't be any difference between a thin or thick on that, at least as far as I
know. Okay.
Yeah, and this one's taking just a little bit longer here, just because it's a rather large VM. So I'll move on, and we'll kind of hit back to it, because it's going to take a little bit of time here. So moving on to what is VMware, and actually this should be vSphere data protection, but whatever. So a little bit around vSphere data protection. So vSphere data protection is based on the EMC's Avamar products. So it's a centralized backup application. It integrates with vCenter, is managed to the web client, and offers things like that enterprise backup products offer, like things like change block tracking for reducing the amount of backup data that is actually taken during incrementals and so forth, so that only the changed blocks that actually are changing on the VM itself that are kept in so vSphere keeps a file that has all of the blocks that changed, and that file gets reset whenever the VM is backed up. So that file continuously, the backup product checks that file to only knows to go and check those blocks on the disk to back those up. So it kind of keeps the backup of a VM more faster, if you will. There is what was introduced when the Avamar product was a variable length deduplication. So what this allows is it allows you to with the backup product, it allows an 8 terabyte worth of backup, and that's deduped storage of 8 terabytes. And then the virtual machines are all disk-based, so they're agentless. We do offer the ability to do things like application level backups. So there are agent-based backups that you can do things for restoring SQL servers, Exchange servers, SharePoint servers. I'll kind of show you the clients and where you can download those when we go through the product. And then what I would consider basically table stakes for any backup product is file level restore. But the good part about this product is it doesn't just do Windows machines, it does do Linux machines. So we'll flip over here in just a second. I'll kind of give you some speeds and teeth on it. And then also, you can replicate your backups to another location if you want to do that. And then the emergency restore is a feature that exists with vSphere data protection that allows you to basically emergency restore a VM regardless of whether vCenter is online or SSO is online. So if you've got a problem and you need to get a VM back online quickly, you can use the emergency restore feature. And then with it being an Avamar-based product or an EMC-based product, we offer data domain and Avamar integration capabilities with the product. I won't be able to show you any of that stuff because I'm not cool enough to have a data domain or an Avamar box in my house. So I'll go through most of the normal stuff here. So just some speeds and feeds for VDP. So there's 20. So you can have 20 appliances per vCenter, and up to 400 VMs per appliance. And then there is what they call backup operations. So with the amount of appliances that you're allowed to have, you can have what are termed as external proxies. So the normal VDP appliance that you deploy has 4 proxies in it to allow it to do the backup operations. Since you can deploy more, you can actually get up to 24 parallel backup operations going at one time. This is the part where, to me, being in healthcare and being in large organizations, this kind of puts this product off the table for lots of larger businesses. Is the amount of backup data that you can actually back up with appliance, right? So deduped up to 8 terabytes, but that's per appliance. I would say the biggest letback with it is that you have to manage the appliances. If you have them separate, you have to manage them separately. When we get some integration and actually get that stuff going together, then that could change. Again, back to the CBT for the change block tracking for only the change block backups. So that's kind of a big deal, just for reducing the amount of time it takes to do things. And then onto the file level recovery, just a little bit more information as far as the Windows and Linux is concerned. Support in Linux for LVMs and X4 types of partitions.
So we have a question.
Yep.
Is it 8 gigabytes per appliance? But I think he means, shouldn't that be 8 terabytes?
What did I say?
On the slide, it says 8 terabytes.
Of backup data per appliance, yes. That's terabytes, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, he said he fat fingered. Okay. So yeah, it's 8 terabytes.
That's 8 terabytes. That's 8 terabytes per appliance, yeah.
Okay, so is 20 appliances at 8 terabytes each then?
So it should be 20 appliances at 8 terabytes each. That's how I understand it. Yep.
Okay.
But the main concern with that is that you have to manage them independently, right? So you may have and we'll see here in a second. I'll show you. You'll have different. You can manage them all through the same vCenter interface, but there's you pick the appliance that you connect to. So there's multiple appliances. The other speeds and feeds for VDP would be the hot add for faster backups and restores, and then NVD for what I would term as the sad face backup style. So if you use other products like Veeam and so forth, they have hot add features, and if you have to fall back to things like NVD, usually the performance is pretty lackluster, if you will. Kind of going into the architecture here, if you will, and I'm going to change this because this is irritating me. So this is kind of the architecture of how things work. So you have your vCenter server, you get your vCenter data protection appliance, and then if you want to have an agent for things like SQL, Exchange, and SharePoint, you can add the agent into the VM to be able to back up specifically things within those applications. And then you have data protection proxies, and those are the external pieces like we were talking about before, the external proxies that can help with backing up and enabling more streams for backing up your environment. Going over to let's see here. So let me go back here to the this thing and see if it actually went through the snapshot real quick. So we can go in here real fast and just check this out. All right. So we know where that's at. While I'm still thinking about it. Sorry guys, it takes a little bit of time. My QNAP is not as speedy as it used to be.
If only you had a Synology.
Oh, come on, man.
Sorry. I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't need a Synology when if you look at my other cluster, it's actually vSAN, so I don't technically need a Synology, but I haven't converted my my management cluster over to vSAN yet. So as you can see here, that MSN file. So as we were talking before, this VROPS instance is an 8 gig instance. So even though, as we were talking about before, that's the reason why it took a little bit of time for it to snapshot the machine's memory. So as you can see, the MSN file grew from, what was it before, like almost 20K, it grew to 8 gig. So it took basically a map of whatever was going on in the memory and dumps it into this file so that when you recover it, whatever was going on in memory is being restored as well. That go back and answer the question? I know we're kind of going back about 10 minutes or
so. Yes, it does, but we have another question.
Cool.
How does it work against vSAN?
How does what work against vSAN? VDP?
They just see, can we back up from vSAN? There we go.
Can you back up from vSAN on VDP? As far as I know, you know what? I don't have it set up to back up from there, but we can try it. I don't know right off the top of my head, but it should.
It's presented as a regular data. I mean, it's a data store to the host, right?
Right. So it's just a data store to the host. So it should be actually. I do have a slide in here that actually says that. Give me just a second.
Sure.
Pretty sure I had a slide in here that actually said that it actually did that. It might have been for vSphere replication, but it's just a normal data store, right? So it should be able to back it up just fine. I didn't deploy it on my vSAN. I could have, but like I said, my laptop pod exploded before I got here, so I kind of had to throw things back together. But if I don't know the answer now, I have to
Mike Wilson jumped on. And he said, yeah, it works, and he gave a link. So I will
okay, cool.
Post that link here and on the Twitters.
Awesome. Sweet. Okay, so going back to some of the VDP requirements, so capacity for, so basically we got some hardware requirements, software requirements, and then we got some capacity requirements. So the number of protected VMs that you can have for VDP is 400. I guess I could have probably put the number in there. The amount of data in those VMs that you can get up to, obviously with those machines per the VDP is 8 terabytes. Obviously, you want to think about things like the type of data that you're backing up when you go in here. So we're talking OSs, files. Are you doing databases? Are you doing things of that nature? You want to take that stuff into consideration. And then also from your capacity requirements, you want to know how long your retention period is going to be, right? So are you going to keep things for 30 days, 60 days, 120, a year? What are you going to, how long are you going to keep the data around? And then you also want to take into consideration your data change rate, right? So if you've got a lot of VMs that change data rather frequently, then you may not get as many of those VMs. You may not be able to protect 400 of those VMs, all at the same time. The maximum number is 400, so that's kind of what I talk about. Software and hardware requirements. So vCenter 5.1 at a minimum. 5.5 or later is recommended. With 6.0, it supports the VCSA and the Windows-based. FYI, for all of those keeping track out there, I'm actually using the VCSA as my vCenter, so it absolutely does work with the VCA because it's working in my lab. So for all the people that question that, so vSphere hosts, you want to make sure that the hosts are 5.0, 5.1, 5.5, or 6.0. With the hardware version having to be at least 5.1 or greater, just don't move it to a machine, a system that's a host that's less than 5.1. I mean, that's just not a good idea. You're going to break functionality. You're going to need the web client, and you're also going to need Adobe Flash 11.3 or greater to run that. So you'll need to make sure you take those things into consideration. Just some more things, some more requirements continued. So VDP does not support independent disks, RDMs, or RDMs, both physical or virtual. So you want to make sure if your VMs have those kinds of those disks, then you won't be able to back those up. We talk about sizing here. So if you're going to use all 8 terabytes and so forth, this is kind of the amount of disk space and the amount of memory and RAM and CPU that you'll need for your appliance as you size it out. Need a little bit more so that you need a little bit more disk space so that you can actually do the deduplication and overhead and so forth. So it's a little bit more than that. So that kind of tosses us into the demo here.
We got a question. So 62 terabyte disk supported?
62 terabyte disk supported? That I don't know. Wow, I'm all kinds of don't know tonight. I don't know, but I could definitely figure that out, find it out for you guys. So to do the installation, so Jonathan put me down to do the install and the configuration for the VDP. So just an FYI, going through the actual installation for VDP it takes a long time. So I'll be honest with you, it takes probably about 45 minutes just to even do the installation for it. And the reason why is that after you go through the configuration piece of it and actually get it all set up, it does take it has to go through and basically work the disks through the way that it needs to be set up for it to do its thing. So I'm not actually going to go through the full installation of VDP because, to be quite honest with you, it's not actually glamorous. There are a couple of things that I will say about the installation that you'll want to keep an eye out for, and that is the default password is change.me, and the login is root and change.me. So you'll need to go through and change that around. But this is the interface, if you will, for the configuration. So after the deployment is done, I actually have to put in my credentials correctly. Just a second. After the deployment is done, what happens is you'll be greeted with, I'll show you here real quick, you'll be greeted with a nice screen that says, actually it says, please go to this link right here, which is the IP address 8543 VDP configure, and that's where you go in and do the configuration piece. It's like I said, it's pretty straightforward. All you need is a DNS entry, forward and reverse for the appliance. So going in here, you definitely want to make sure that when you set this thing up and actually give it a name, you actually have a reverse in here, a reverse DNS entry, because I did not have a reverse DNS entry and I had lots and lots of problems. That is definitely one of the things that you want to make sure of. Also, as far as things like, so people may ask about things like NTP with this product, right? So since this is an appliance, there's NTP involved. There is a caveat with using this appliance. Do not actually set, and this is in the documentation, do not directly connect the appliance to an NTP server. In fact, what they want you to do is they want you to synchronize the appliance with the host, so forth. So do you need NTP? Absolutely, right? You still need NTP to reside on your network to set the time for all your hosts. But make sure this VM is set for the VM tools to synchronize the NTP with the host. You want to make sure that that's set, because you will run into issues if you try to set it yourself. So just some quick, just kind of quickly going through the configure piece. I'll kind of walk you guys through what's in here. This is kind of where you go in and you can actually see the services and so forth that are involved with the appliance, and if they're running and if they're not running. So you can actually do some stop. You can stop services and so forth. You want to. This is where you'll see your proxies. This is where you'll add an external proxy if you want to add an external proxy. So like we were talking about before, if you wanted to add another appliance in so that it can help with backup jobs, concurrent backup jobs, this is where you would go and you would do a manage. You would do a add an external proxy, and you would go through here and set it up. I only deployed one because my lab is, I just want to get it done. So this right here is where you would go through and you can actually see the amount of storage involved. So I haven't done any performance analysis, and the dedupe hasn't run because I don't really have any backups really running right now. I haven't set anything up. And unless you actually get some going, it does take a little bit of time for those to go through. This does have the ability to do rollbacks, so you have, if you need to roll back the appliance to a known valid state, you can go through here. You just need to unlock the enable rollback feature, type in your password for the appliance, and it'll actually roll back the appliance if something does happen. As you can see, for upgrades, it's, they want you to just put the ISO in, and you're good to go. This is the emergency restore functionality that we talked about before. So this is the ability to, once you have a restore in here, you can actually, restore the machine rather quickly without having access to the vCenter. This is your log collector. If I get the tab to pop up there. So this is if you want to download your client logs or configuration logs or anything along those lines. So going through here for vSphere data protection, as you can see, it's the longest. It's the longest longest entry on the list here. So we'll go through and just kind of do a backup. So I have done a backup, or at least I think one of my VMs was doing a backup. The database one was doing a backup when we went here. So I'll check in just a second, see how it's going. And we'll check it out here. But basically, what you do is you come in through here, and sometimes you may see it when you first come in. You may see a screen that says connect to, and then that's the list that you drop down and you select the appliance. So for me, the appliance was just named vSphere Data Protection 6.0. You select the appliance, you hit connect, and then you're brought to this screen, and you can start kicking up your backup jobs. So if we wanted to kick up a backup job here, we actually wanted to start one up. What we would do is we go over here to backup actions, and we go to new, and we would go to, we can do a couple of different things here. So this is guest images, and this is application. So let me cancel out of this real quick, and I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about from the application list. So if you go into right here, into the configuration piece, you can see these are the downloads for the application. These are the downloads for the application agent that you would need to install on those boxes to get more granular backups if you wanted to do that. What we'll do here is we'll kind of go in here and take a look at this. So as you can see, I backed up the DB box. Let's see. see, it says enabled. So what we'll do is we're going to go through here and we're just going to go through backing up another box. So let's do we'll do a new. And we're just going to do a guest image. So we'll go to next here. We're going to do, so we can do full images or we can actually do individual disks. So if you want to exclude some things, then you can do so. When you do a restore though, or if we're going back to things like the RDMs and so forth, you can actually do a backup of those boxes. But what ends up happening is that the disk ends up showing up in the, when you actually restore it, it actually shows up as missing. So you want to be careful with things like that. So we'll do a full image backup here. And we're going to select a VM out of the list here. So I'm going to back up, I want to back up my domain controller. And then here is where we can set our backup schedule. So it's the same kind of thing that you're used to from, if you're familiar with other backup strategies, dailies, we can have it done every day and then set the time, or you can do it weekly and have it done, once a week, or you can have it set for the first Sunday of every month, or the first, the second or third or last Sunday of the month. It really depends on what, what you guys want to do from a backup perspective. I would say typically most people do, most people are going to do a backup schedule daily. And then this is going to be your retention policy. So how long are we going to keep this thing around? Forever, 60 days, or you can actually specify a certain date that the backup would be kept for, or you can do the what do they call that? The father, son, grandfather types of scenarios for backing up, for longer periods of time. So for now, we're just going to do the 60 days. I'm just going to hit next, and we're just going to call this vBrownBag backup. Hit next. Finish it up. Backup job was created successfully, and then what we can do is go in here to show the items, and now we can see what items are in that list, or the items in the protected list, and then we can go into reports and kind of see job details of what's going on and so forth. So this machine is being backed up. So if we come out here to see, go into monitor. Actually, this one's being this is being replicated. So basically, that's how you would do a backup of your machine. Is there any questions as far as that's concerned?
There's no questions, but I'm more curious than anything. How many customers do you actually see using VDP? I'm assuming maybe the smaller shops.
Yeah, this might be a an ROBO type of situation. Since it's since it's included, you can kind of do whatever you want. So if somebody has a smaller location that they want to do things on, and they don't have a lot of I would see it as like an ROBO type of situation. This is, to me personally, without the VMware hat on, I don't consider this a full oh my gosh, I'm going to use this to back up my my 2000 VM data center type of scenario. I'm not saying that you can't do that, but until there's the ability to kind of manage all the appliances all in one in one interface for and they're all working together. I don't really see it for larger types of environments. I see it for more smaller environments. That's just my personal opinion.
No, I agree. I just wasn't sure what you saw out in the field, or if you could even talk about that.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't use it when I was a customer. I didn't use this product for that purpose, for my main data center type of purpose. If I had remote offices, it's always an option. So.
Gotcha.
Cool. So, kind of flipping this thing over to the next thing is we kind of need to speed it up just a little bit here. Kind of get into vSphere replication. So vSphere Replication is our data protection and disaster recovery solution for virtual machines. So the great thing about this thing is it integrates with with products like Site Recovery Manager, vCenter. It's all managed through vCenter and through the web client. It's host-based replication, so it's independent of the underlying storage architecture. So it does work with vSAN, works with NAS, SANs, and DAS types of environments. So you don't have to have an enterprise SAN. You don't have to. I'll get into it here in just a second as far as RPOs are concerned, but from an asynchronous replication type of perspective and from a low RPO of 15 minutes, is this an option for enterprises? Absolutely. Do you have RPO of 0? Maybe you don't. Array-based replication, at least from when I was a customer, and I was a NetApp customer, SnapMirror was actually, SnapMirror is pretty pricey, at least in my opinion. It was kind of pricey. So you kind of have to take those kinds of things into consideration, right? vSphere Replication is it comes with vSphere Essential, Standard, Enterprise Plus. You can actually install the appliance and have the stuff ready for you. So if you're using things like SRM, you can still use vSphere Replication for managing your, for doing host-based replication, and you don't have to pay the premium, if you will, for storage vendor replication products.
So we do have a question.
Yep.
Can you replicate VDP backups, thinking of RoboSites, to main data center?
Say that one more time. So can you back up? Is it in the chat window?
Can you replicate VDP backups, thinking of RoboSites back to the main data center?
Yeah, so you can replicate those things. You can replicate the backups, wherever. So it doesn't matter whether if you're ROBO or production data center, you can replicate those off-site. Absolutely. That was definitely one of the things that the product could do. I didn't get into a demo on that because I would have had to do a couple of things with making a kind of a remote site, if you will, to kind of map those things out to. Going back to the vSphere data replication, data protection, the nice thing about it is that if the appliance actually crashes, you can actually remap the MDKs and the backups to a new appliance, and it works just fine. Flip it over to PowerPoint here real quick. So
it would actually be better if it was
the other nice thing.
I was going to say it would be great if it crashed, and then if there was other appliances that they would pick up versus having to
pick up the
manually.
Slack, right? Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely that would definitely be something that would be a cool feature for those other appliances to kind of do. I'm not certain that it does that. I'm fairly certain you have to manually add those VMDKs in. The good thing is that after we get done with this, GS will probably watch it, and then he will send me an email and tell me about how many things I got wrong. So that's always a redeeming quality. So going back to vSphere replication, with single, multiple, so you can do a single vCenter to a target site, or you can do multiple source sites to a shared target site, or you can use vCloud Air as a place to replicate the VMs off to. Just some more speeds and feeds for the vSphere replication, kind of speed this thing up just a little bit. So RPOs from 15 minutes to 24 hours, and you can set them per VM. 10 appliances per vCenter server. When you start them out small, they're 2 vCPUs and 4 gigs of RAM. 4 vCPUs, 4 gig of RAM, and they have a couple of 18 gig disks attached to them. The product is available in basically any version of vSphere that you buy. If you got enterprise, and even if you have standard, you can still use the product. And it can manage up to 2,000 replications total. So kind of just doing some use case scenarios, going back and kind of showing you guys what we're talking about here from, you know, how the product actually works from a use case perspective for source and target. So as you can see, so you can actually seed this thing. You can actually take the replica and actually send it to a target site as a seed, and then run a change blocks, and actually it would check over the VM and actually just send the change blocks. So you can seed the target site with backups or with replicas. So this is just kind of a source target type deal. So this is this would just be a kind of a primary data center to a secondary data center kind of scenario. If you wanted to do cluster to cluster, you can do that. So a single vCenter server, if you would, you could actually replicate a VM from one cluster to another. When I do it, and I actually show it to you here in just a second, that's exactly what I'm doing, because I'm not cool enough to have 2 data centers in my house. Or the other use case is shared target, right? So double source or multiple source and share and single shared target. So if you had 2 data centers, you could have it send your replicas to one, if you have like one master type of DR site. All right.
So we do have a question.
Yep.
So on one of the slides it says no limit on number of VMs you can replicate. Then it says 2,000 replications max.
Okay, so that's going to be that should be I believe that's 2,000 replications as far as VMDKs are concerned. So no limits to the VMs. Yeah, I guess that would not make a lot of sense.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. I'll have to go back and check the documentation, because I saw that too, and I'll have to figure out.
Is that a per appliance?
Let me double check here. I don't know if it's per appliance. I was reading through the documentation, and it said 200 replications max, but that's if it's 400 VMs. Well, wait a minute. No. This is 400 VMs is a VDP thing, not a vSphere replication.
2,000. Wait, you said 4.
So going back to VDP's maximum number of protected VMs was 400. vSphere replication is 2,000.
Right, but
no limit on the numbers that you can replicate. I see.
There you go. Yeah.
So I think it's 2,000. I think it's 2,000 replications at the same time. Again, I'll double check it. And going through the demo, just real quick. So I know that doesn't answer the question, but hopefully I'll get it for you. So the deployment of, again, this is all deployed through an OVF file. It's pretty trivial as far as how the VM is actually deployed. I mean, I don't really see a whole lot of reason to go through the deployment. It's pretty simple. All you have to do is just put in an IP address, a gateway, and then set a password for the appliance. When you do bring it up and it does connect, it will tell you you'll have to go to the VM instance for this, and you'll have to connect to kind of do the configuration piece. So from here, this is the VM that I applied. So I would go to we'll go out here and I'll walk that just real quick, because then we'll set up the VCPS 192.168 1.101, and then there's the management instance. So this is root, and then whatever the password is that you applied, which I probably typed it in wrong, because I have a password for things like NSX and I have a password for not. So give me just a second.
By the way, this is for, I just found it, and basically it says Replication Management Server can now configure for replication and manage a maximum of 2,000 simultaneous replications.
Okay, there you go. So when you come in and after you deploy the appliance, you have to come in here and configure. You have to do the configuration to actually get it to connect to the vSphere to actually get it to configure to vCenter. So vSphere replication will show up here, but what will happen is vSphere replication will say like not configured. So what you'll do is you'll come in here and it'll say not configured, and it gives you a link and it'll pop you out to this. You log in, you put in what won't be in here that you have to put in here is this lookup address should be there. Your SSO administrator ID should be there, but your password will not be there. And since we're just doing just a regular install, we're just going to go ahead and use the embedded database. Once you put in your SSO password, you hit save and restart the service, and give it about, I think it takes a couple of minutes. And then what it will do is it will go ahead and start up the database for keeping track of the replication configuration data. So what you want to see is this here, is enabled and OK. So what we can do from here is when you go back into the interface of vSphere replication, you have a couple of options in here. So configure, again, that pops you out to the appliance. Manage actually pops you over to actually showing you target sites and replication servers. So you can actually add in another target site if you want to add in for another appliance or another replication server. You can add those pieces in there. So when this is so the way this works is when you deploy as an OVF, the first server is known as the management server, and any additional appliances are known as vSphere replication servers. So those would be added in here, and those are the ones that help you do facilitate more replications. So going back here to where I was before, which is back into here, we're going to do a so if we want to take a machine and we want to replicate it over to wherever we want to replicate it to. So what I did was I replicated the DB box, or I was going to replicate the DB box over to my vSAN. So what we can do is, as you can see here, so if you look at one that's not been replicated, we'll go down here to all unset actions and you go to configure replication. This is how we replicate. So this is how you set up the replication type. So we replicate to a vCenter server. You're still going to replicate to a vCenter server, regardless of it. So we're staying within a cluster, but one vCenter server manages both these clusters. So we're just going to do from one to the other. So we'll pick this. We'll pick the target site. So we're going to just stay in our target site. If you wanted to add a remote site, you could add it in. You would have another vCenter server that would have another appliance, and you would just connect it to that. And then what we'll do is we're going to hit next, and then we're going to auto-assign. So you can actually assign a replication server to perform the replication if you wanted to set it up so that you had certain ones use certain replication servers or not. I'm just going to do an auto-assign here. You're looking for the validation succeeded down here. And then we'll do next. And then what we do here is we just double check and we can pick where we want to send this, data, this VM. So since we're doing a kind of a cluster to cluster, if you will, so if we're kind of going back here to this use case and we're doing this same cluster or this same vCenter cluster to cluster, we can see all the vCenters in the list here, or I'm sorry, all the data stores in the list here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and push it over to my vCenter data store, and that's where I'm going to put it because I'm going to make it go outside of here. So in my compute cluster, the only two data stores that exist in that compute cluster are ISOs and my vCenter data store. So I want to make sure that goes to another cluster. You could replicate it to another volume in the same cluster if you wanted to, but there's not a whole lot of point to that, but there might be some use case for it.
We do have a question.
What we can do now is we can do guest OS. Yep.
Can I select the source on a data store basis and not VM by VM?
So if you want to do so vSphere replication, as I understand it, is VM based. So you have to pick the VM. So if you want to do, if you want to do an entire data store, then you would pick the VMs that are on that data store. So guest OS quiescing, we can, when it takes the snap, we can actually quiesce the database if we need to, or we can do network, we can do some network compression and so forth to kind of help with low bandwidth LAN sites and things of that nature. This is where we would do things like RPOs in your point-in-time instances. So like we were talking about before, we could do point-in-time instances. So they kind of look like snapshots. And they actually look like snapshots in the Snapshot Manager. So when you do multiple point-in-time instances, if you can do as many, I don't know what the upper limit is on this, but yeah, I don't know what the upper limit is on that. So, but the more you keep, obviously, the snapshots that are the data gets bigger as you keep it, right? So it's because you're going to have to revert back to to a point in time. So just keep that in mind. RPOs. So the lowest RPO for vSphere replication is 15 minutes, and the highest is 24 hours. If you need lower than 15 minutes, then you would need to move to array-based replication. That's going to be usually array-based replication is, you can have things like synchronous, or you can have things that are, you can have like 1 minute or however long, it just depends on the vendor. But generally, I mean, not everyone needs an RPO of 0 or anything in that range. So this does offer the ability to still do that without pricey array-based replication. So RPO of 15 minutes, validation succeeded. We'll go ahead and keep, I'm going to keep 3 instances. So what this will do is, as it continues to go, as the recovery point in time sends the other one over, it keeps 3 instances of it per day for the last however many days. So cannot exceed 24. So let's go back down to 1. Hit next, verify everything, finish it up. And then what you can do is, when you want to monitor what's going on with the with it, you can actually go back over here to vSphere replication, go into, oh my gosh, hold on a second. Give me just a second. My laptop's about to do a virus scan for some reason. Go to monitor. And then what we can do is we can see the outgoing replications. So as you can see, I sent over the DB a little while ago to the vSAN. It took about 63 minutes. It's rather large, and my network's pretty saturated. So, the last sync size was about 22 gigs, so that VM's about 22 gigs in size. That was the initial full sync. So this is doing an initial full sync. You can come in here and you can kind of check the progress through going through here, and then you can also see your point in times if you want to take a look at your point in time. So this is also the interface if you wanted to do, if you wanted to move replication to another server, or pause, or things along those lines, or do reconfigure the replication setup. So with that, I think that's pretty much it for me as far as that stuff's concerned. With with both of those products, I hope it was informative. I hope you guys got a lot out of it, or if not, then sorry if I wasted your time. But I appreciate you hosted for me, and letting me come out here for vBrownBag. Man, this is something I've been wanting to do. So hopefully I did you guys justice. There's a lot of really good talent on this thing. So.
No, you did awesome job, man. This was very informative. But you do realize that you're actually doing another one next week, right?
Yeah, I know, man. I'm a complete glutton for punishment. So, Frappier. I mean, next time if I'm ever out in Massachusetts, he's getting a lot of noogies for hooking me up twice. To his credit, though, I did volunteer. I said, if you have some spaces that are not they're not filled, I'll be more than happy to do it in. I just didn't realize that he was gonna jam me up for 2 sessions. So
Yeah.
right
So
back to back.
for VDP, I guess the advanced feature or version now is available by default, whereas before you actually had to pay for it. So that was one of the comments.
Okay. Yeah, it's it used to be VDPA, right? It used to be like
Yep.
VDP Advanced, and then they just kind of dropped the Advanced off. But I think now it still probably should be called VDPA. It should just be called like vSphere Data Protection Avamar, because that's that's what it's based on. So.
But no, this was awesome. Demos were great, very informative. So
Cool.
thank you very much. I will not be hosting you next week. I will actually be in Boston next week. So.
Oh, you will be in Boston. All right.
I
Cool.
will be in Red Hat Summit. So. Do we have any more questions, or are we good?
If anybody has any other questions, I mean, you guys, I mean, that's my Twitter handle, vWilmo. If you want to heckle, if you want to tell me I'm terrible, please. I take all criticisms, because usually I'm drinking a beer and I really don't care anyway. So appreciate everybody's questions, and I really do. It's all great stuff. I appreciate the interactions. That's always fun. I don't like slides. I prefer to do demos. That's just my personal preference. So.
I think most of us do the same. So, all right. Cool. With that said, I'm actually going to stop the recording.